Hi there, and welcome to Unfiltered Solopreneur, the podcast where we share real, unvarnished stories of people who dared to break free from the corporate grind. I'm your host, Nikhil, and I'm passionate about helping solopreneurs like you turn their dreams into reality. Sometimes the most painful moments become the clearest mirrors. When Deitra Payne lost her youngest sister unexpectedly, it wasn't just grief that followed, it was a profound realization that tomorrow isn't promised. That wake up call sparked a transformation from painfully shy professor to speaker, coach, and bold voice for others chasing unfinished dreams. Her message: don't let fear, judgment, or your own limitations stop you from leaping. Because according to the research she uncovered, the number one reason people don't chase their dreams is fear of being judged. I'll see you on the other side with my thoughts. Hello and welcome to a new episode of Unfiltered Solopreneur. I'm your host, Nikhil Vaish, founder and CEO of Boost Solo. My next guest is a positivity powerhouse who left academia to launch a mission-driven business, helping others live their boldest dreams with integrity, joy, and just the right amount of sparkle. Deitra, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. How are you doing, Nicole?
Good, thank you, and excited to dive into our conversation this evening.
Okay.
So, you've lived a few different professional lives, right? Corporate world, educator, and now entrepreneur, solopreneur, as I prefer to call it. But you had mentioned to me that it was your sister's passing that sort of pushed you to take the leap, right? So, could you talk a little bit about what sort of shifted in you at that after that moment?
Sure. That was probably the most difficult time in my life because my sister's passing was unexpected. So when I was informed that she had been found deceased, I was I just really couldn't process it, to be honest. And it will be 2 years in August. And it still seems so unreal to me. But because her passing was unexpected, it said to me that tomorrow isn't promised. Even though we all know this intellectually,
Yeah,
it really hit hard. I just couldn't believe it because it was my youngest sister. I'm
right.
like, this cannot be. So even though we know this intellectually, we all still expect to be here tomorrow. But one of the reasons I'm so passionate about helping others live their big, bold dreams is because life is short. We don't know how long we're going to be here. And that was the motivating factor behind me starting my business because I've always wanted to start a business because I've been passionate about paying it forward, passionate about helping others, but I continue to put it off.
Right.
And so when that happened, I said, this is the time. I first had to kind of process her passing and really think about it before starting my business. But I knew that I was going to get my business started because I said, I may never get it started
Right.
because
Yeah.
we don't know how long we're going to be here.
Very true. Tomorrow, you can't wait for. Never put things off till tomorrow, right? Because that's not guaranteed.
Right.
And as painful as loss is, and you said you took some time to process it, but I love how you use that to sort of propel and build a beautiful mission to help others make sure they don't let time pass them by or ever you know decide at some point in their life that they regret not having done something, right? So, and I'm sure your sister's smiling down on you right now, that in terms of, championing that in her memory.
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so. Thank you so much for that.
Of course. So the other thing you mentioned to me was that you were a painfully shy child, right? And you still consider yourself an introvert. Myself also, I'm also an introvert. But I'm curious, how has that influenced your approach to building a business that requires you to be so visible and out there? Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because I was painfully shy as a kid. But I will tell you that I knew as a kid that I was going to be an educator. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. I knew that I was going to be an educator. It's just that I thought I would be teaching algebra because I
Right.
absolutely loved algebra. I took it in the seventh grade. I would run home and try to teach anyone who would listen to me. Of course, no one was listening to me, but I was so passionate about it. So it was my passion for helping others, helping students, and paying it forward. So I knew I was going to be an educator. And of course, you cannot be an educator being shy. So
Right.
one of the, I cannot stand up in front of a class, being timid. So one of the things that I always like to say is that regardless of who you are, particularly, someone who is shy, someone who is an introvert, I'm not going to let that stop me from living my dreams. And my biggest dream was to be an educator, to help students. I was so passionate about it. So when you're talking about moving from being an educator to what I'm doing now, it's the same thing
Right.
because I'm helping to pay it forward. I'm helping others. It's something I'm passionate about. So that is what really propelled me from being that shy kid. And sometimes I still feel shy today, to be honest. It's difficult for me to be in social settings. It's uncomfortable for me to be in social settings. And so, indeed, yes, I am an introvert. But sometimes you have to transform yourself to achieve your dreams. That's why my tagline is empower, transform, achieve. I empower my clients to transform themselves to achieve their dreams. So that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
We have to transform ourselves to achieve the dreams that we want in life.
Yeah, no, very true. And I love how you reframe that, right? You're sort of like, you want to make sure that it's not going to stop you from doing the things you want to do, right? And
Yes.
I completely relate too, because I mean, I'm an introvert too. And it's like, just doing this podcast was a big step for me. But
Yeah.
again, it was like I wanted to tell these stories, right? And that was more important than the introvertedness. So I completely relate to what you're saying in terms of how to sort of reframe that, right? Don't let it put the flame of your passion out.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. You have to step out of your comfort zone.
right. And it doesn't mean you're automatically going to become an extrovert, but it means
Right.
that
Hmm.
you pick and choose, right? You pick your extrovert battles, so to speak. And then you revert back to being the introvert when you don't need to be,
Yeah,
on camera or doing other stuff. So, yeah, no, I love that.
absolutely. Yeah. You're changing your mindset. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And it's not permanent, right? It's not like now I'm going out and like posting my food on social media and everything I ever do all day long. It doesn't have to be one
Yeah.
extreme to the other, right? I think that's what
No,
people
absolutely.
don't get.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because, like I said, I'm still uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
I find ways to transform myself for different situations so that I can feel more comfortable or so that I can achieve that goal that I have for myself or that dream that I have for myself.
Right. No, I love that. So let me ask you now, in terms of when you started your solopreneurship journey, what did you think it would be like, and what has the reality been like so far?
Well, to be honest, because I taught business. So I did have a sense of reality when it comes to being a solopreneur. And they've always said, at least when I was younger, that essentially you're going to be working around the clock because you're going to be doing everything yourself. And so that for me, I expected that. That was my expectation. So I expected that I was going to be putting in a lot of work. But one of the things that I don't think I really considered is that it could potentially impact your health because I was
Right.
working around the clock and my health was kind of being destroyed. And I had to take a step back and make sure that I was taking care of myself. So I don't think that I considered that at the time. I just knew that I was going to have to put a lot of work in, that I was going to have to persevere, that I was going to need to be resilient. So I expected all of that. I knew that it was going to be hard work.
Right.
So I didn't have those expectations of this is going to be easy. I just start a business and I don't have to put in any work and it's just going to come. It's
Right.
just going to happen. I'm going to make all this money. No, that wasn't the reality for me. I think I had more of a true reality that it's going to take hard work when you're starting from the ground up. No one knows me.
Yeah.
No one's familiar with my brand. I was going to have to get myself out there to let people know that my business existed. So, of course, it's going to take hard work.
Right.
But you have to keep in mind as a solopreneur that your health is going to be more important and to find a way in which to balance it. What is it that I need to do each day? What is most important for me to get done and not try to do everything in a day
Yeah.
because it could have an impact on your health. So it's all about self care in the process.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important, and it's interesting because I think we mentioned in the pre-call too. There's so many people, especially younger people, who think if you build it, they will come. You didn't have that illusion, but you didn't draw boundaries because that is another issue, right? Because when you're your own boss, everyone thinks, oh, you can work whenever you want. It's like you're working all the time because there's no there is no start time and finish time, right? There's no
Absolutely.
weekends, there are no holidays, and there are no free lunches. So, yeah, you
No,
do have to.
absolutely. Absolutely. When no one knows who you are, you're going to have to put in a lot of time to get yourself out there.
Yeah, and there's no other way to do it. I think that's an important thing, right? There may be people telling you that there are, shortcuts you can take and you can do this in like, 0 to whatever, 7 figures in a week. No, it doesn't happen. So, uh,
Absolutely.
not
And,
in
and that's,
reality. Yeah.
yeah, and that's exactly why I like what you're doing. You're actually letting people know, particularly those who wish to start a business, that it's not something that's going to come easily. You're going
Right.
to have to put in the work. It's not something that's going to come overnight. You have to put in the work. So that's what I appreciate about your show is bringing reality to what it's like to be a solopreneur.
Thank you. Yeah, no, and the effort is worth the journey is worth the outcome, right? That's the thing people need to remember. And in fact, I always feel like, not to go off topic, but if you don't put in the hard work, then the joy is also not as great when you actually get to the other side, right? So if you took
Yeah,
shortcuts, you're not going to appreciate it as much or in the same way.
absolutely. And you miss out on the learning experience as well. I'll
Yeah.
add that in, right? Because I will say as much work as you have to put in, I am loving the journey. It's a
Yeah.
fabulous journey for me because I'm very creative. And then it also affords you that opportunity to learn so much. Because when I started my business, I did a lot of research, particularly in the age of, the advancement of technology. And there's so many tools out there. So I needed to explore those tools. I had planned to do my own website, so I needed to do research on what is the best host for me to use, right? And the host that I essentially decided on, I was not familiar with that host. So I had to do a little more research before I decided to go with that organization. But yeah, the journey is wonderful. And the experience that you gain in owning a business is wonderful because you acquire so much knowledge because I'm looking at all these different tools out there that you can use. I mean, sometimes it can be overwhelming. I will
Yeah.
say that because there's so much out there and you're trying to dig through everything that's out there and figure out what is going to be best for my organization, for my business.
True. And yeah, and you're right. There's also external learning, as you talked about, in terms of knowledge and just being able to imbibe that. But you also learn about yourself, right? That's the
Yeah.
other piece that is amazing. Yeah. So I totally agree. It is a great journey. So
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about brand. You mentioned the word fabulous, which is a good segue to my next question. So your business is called Fabulous Coaching, Training, and Productions. So what does fabulous represent to you as a brand value, and how does it shape your approach to clients?
Oh, that's a great question. And I will say that when we're talking about branding,
Yeah.
for me, it's about inspiring with authenticity because I was born as someone who is caring and compassionate. It was innate to me. And sometimes it was very challenging for me, right? And if you look at my social media pages, the content that I put
Yeah.
out is grounded in what my company represents, which is caring, compassion, kindness, integrity, positivity, and gratitude. So that's what I bring to those who come to me and wish to utilize my business because that's who I am as a person.
Right. Yeah, and we'll dig into that a little more too. But I love that because so those are that is sort of how you touch the people that you work with, right? With through
Hmm.
all those values. Now,
Yes.
what's the other thing I wanted to ask you? Sort of coaching and speaking is a very competitive field, right? So,
Yeah.
what has been the biggest challenge? And as you said, when we're building a brand, people don't know you. So, what has been the biggest challenge in communicating this unique approach that you just described to potential clients?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think when we're talking about speaking, because I'm so passionate about bringing my story to the stage. And what I find most challenging, like you said, is a very competitive when you're looking for those speaking opportunities. So it's been so challenging for me to find those speaking opportunities. I've been fortunate to find the speaking opportunities in which I can present virtually because I think when I first started my business in August of 2024, I think I had eight speaking engagements. And so, but that was virtually. But I love that interaction with the audience. And I really want to get on the stage to share my story. So that's been challenging for me to find those opportunities. But I continue to put myself out there because I do a lot of networking and I do let people know, what I'm looking for with respects to moving forward as a motivational speaker. Now, when I was a professor, I had access to all that, but I was speaking on something completely different. My
Right.
research interest was workplace bullying and emotional intelligence. So I was going to academic and professional conferences and presenting on these topics. But now I've moved to the, motivational speaking, and it's a little challenging.
Yeah, it takes time, as you said,
Yeah,
I mean, and you just started, it's not even been a year.
yeah,
So, you have to sort of put yourself out there and you have to be consistent. That's the other thing, right?
yeah.
Uh, and that is so, and that sort of leads me nicely to my next question, which is you're consistently putting positive messaging out there in social media, right? And like you mentioned a minute ago, and you even told me that your most engaged posts that got the most engagement were about workplace bullying, right?
Oh,
So it's sort of the opposite of what your message is. So how do you balance sort of showing up with your joy and positivity versus what the algorithms seem to reward, right? Which is pretty much the opposite.
yeah. That has been challenging.
Yeah.
But the workplace bullying messages that I put out there are actually articles that I put out on LinkedIn
Right.
because I want people to be aware of what workplace bullying is. Because I know when I initially started giving presentations on workplace bullying, a lot of people indicated that they were not aware of workplace bullying and that they didn't know it existed.
Right.
So I wanted to continue to write on workplace bullying because that's something that I'm passionate about. Because when I worked in, some organizations, I was bullied. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about it. So I still wanted to put that information out there to educate people. But when I post my content on my social media pages, they all represent positivity.
Right.
But in terms of when I mentioned to you that I noticed that the workplace bullying was getting more eyes on it, I said it tells us a story
Yeah.
about what's going on in organizations. And that was my intent behind it to not only let people understand what workplace bullying is, to provide them with that knowledge, but for managers to have an understanding of what it is and what they may need to do to change the culture within the workplace. That was my intent behind doing those articles.
Right. Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. But again, I think that, and this is something we talked about a little bit, is the algorithm sort of are looking for things that sort of have a negative, subject matter, if you like, right?
Yeah,
Versus positivity. So that's always going
yeah,
to be an uphill challenge. But I power to you. I think the more positive voices there are, drowning out the negativity, ultimately
yeah,
we'll be able
yeah,
to fight back the algorithms, I hope.
yeah. But to be honest, even with workplace bullying, because I said that I did the articles to impart knowledge, I don't necessarily feel that it's negative.
Okay.
If it actually affords people the opportunity to make changes.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's still within your positivity message. You're creating awareness of a
Yes.
problem that exists there. Okay.
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah, and I'm interpreting it as the algorithms didn't understand
Yeah.
that nuance, but they were looking at it as like, oh, here's negative content we can amplify, right? Maybe,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
don't know. So
Maybe, but I'm hoping that
fair
others
point.
look
Yeah.
at it in a different way.
Now I understand your intention.
Yeah.
That is clarifies. So appreciate that. So now you value integrity. You just talked about that a few minutes ago, right? But the world we live in, there's a lot of false promises and a lot of get rich quick schemes out there, right?
Hmm.
So how do you make your real approach stand out and cut through all the noise? How do you approach that?
By consistently putting out messages of positivity and integrity and caring and compassion, one of the things that I would always tell my students
Yeah,
is look at different messages. Look at, for example, look at different news outlets so that you can gain more of a realistic
perspective. Yeah,
perspective, right? Absolutely. More realistic perspective of what's going on, right? Don't just focus on one outlet that may consistently contribute to that negativity, but
right.
explore all outlets. And that's one of the reasons I think research is so important. Look for those organizations that are putting out those messages that are more realistic, right?
Yeah,
So I think that that's important when we're talking about the negativity that's out there in the world is look at different perspectives and then
yeah.
figure out what is going to be best for you.
Right. And also it sounds like you're sort of sticking with keeping it real, right? What you were talking about earlier, because I think that is a challenge today too, because I come up against that too. People are like, so what do I get in like what happens in a month? Like what happens in 30 days? Will it get to like,
Yeah.
X, Y, or Z? And the answer is no. And it's hard to fight that all the time because it's like a tidal wave out there, right, on social media that talks about how, as you said a minute ago, if you build it, they will come, which is not true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, absolutely. As a coach, I'm an achievement and accountability coach. And so I expect people to be accountable
Yeah.
for themselves, right? So for me, when we're talking about all of the negativity that's out there or
The
the
false promises.
dishonesty that's
Right.
out there, right? The false
Yeah.
promises, right? Take a look at who you are. Is that who you are as a person? Is that the way in which you wish to move in the world? Now, the fact is, the only people that we can change are ourselves. We cannot change anyone else.
True.
So if they want to focus on the negativity, then there's nothing that I can do. But guess what? Happen to make a ripple effect by putting out positivity. That's who I want to represent in the world. What
Right.
other people wish to represent in the world, I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do. I can't say, no, that's not right. You should change it. That's not something I can do. But what I can do is be accountable by putting out positivity, positive messages, kindness, caring, compassion. What my company is grounded in. I cannot change anyone else. I know that that's something that's difficult. It's something that's difficult for me. It's something that I faced when I was in organizations and working for others. I once worked for a college in which their values were not aligned with my values.
Aligned with
And
yours.
I
Yeah.
remember talking to a colleague, and they said that um, you can't go against the grain. That's what they
Hmm.
said to me. You
Wow.
can't go against the grain. But I'm not going to go along with something that does not align with my values. And so, whatever the messages are that are out there that may be fraudulent, that may lack integrity, whatever it is, you as a person have to decide, is this who I want to be? Is this what I want to believe? That's why I completely believe in research. Go out there and do the research. What are other people saying? Is the messages that are out there, are they true or are they false? Do some investigation.
Yeah.
Do the research.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and I also love that the way you sort of talk about the fact that you know, you're not competing with those people, right? Like you said, like people ask me that sometimes too. Like, if someone doesn't believe in X, Y, or Z, what are you going to do? How are you going to convince them? I'm like, I can't convince them. That's not my job. You know,
Yeah.
I'm offering what I'm offering. When they're ready, if they're ready, they'll come. But unless they're open to it, they're not going to. My solution may not appeal to them, and that's okay, right? I don't have to try and appeal to everyone, but I will also never compromise on my values and become one of those sort of, like, the false promise things out there that, and there's a lot of
Mhm.
pressure to do that today, to be fair, but you have to stick
No,
to your guns. Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
And that's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Those false promises and those types of messages. It's just that, you have to decide who you want to be as a person and decide whether or not you're going to believe what's in front of you, or are you going to do the research and say, well, wait a minute, this is not true. So it's on that person, it's not
Yeah.
on me. I feel that I'm doing what is necessary to contribute to the world in a positive way. And that's the way that I'm going to move forward. It's not for me to try to figure out how can I change other people's minds, because that's not going to happen unless they're ready to change their mind, right?
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm making that ripple effect. I put the messages out there, and hopefully it's going to make a change.
Yeah.
Like, it just takes one person. And then maybe
True.
that one person, it will lead to someone else. So that's what I'm doing in the world.
Yeah.
I'm
No.
not looking at what other people are doing.
Yeah, no, and I agree, and I think that's a really good lesson, right? Because you can't worry about how everyone else. Like you said, you can only change yourself, and I think if everybody sort of really understood that, the world would be a very different and better place, right?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm contributing to helping to make the world a better place.
Yeah,
So,
I love it. You're planting the seeds, right? And they will bear fruit at some point.
yeah.
I have no doubt. So, how do you decide how much or which parts of your personal story to share publicly, and which parts to keep private?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I don't share everything about my story.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I just don't want to overwhelm people with my story. And I think I may have mentioned to you, at the time that my sister passed away, it was it was within a span of a year and a half where other members of my family passed away, three other immediate family members. So I
Right.
don't talk about all of that because it can be overwhelming.
Sure.
So I kind of focus on the motivating factor of me starting my business and empowering the world to start living their dreams, because life is too short to not live your dreams. So I really focus on telling that story, more so because it was so unexpected. It was very difficult for me. It was a challenging time, and it really took a lot, in terms of me really processing it and understanding it and grieving it. Like I said, even today, it's still difficult. And in August, it will be 2 years since she passed away. But it's about me being grateful, because oftentimes people will ask, why are you so positive? when you've experienced all of this in your life. And the thing that I always tell people is that I was grateful to have them in my life.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that I don't get over it quickly just because I'm grateful, but it means that I'm reflecting on the positive versus the negative. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and you're right. I mean, there has to be a level of authenticity in terms of your story, right, for people to relate to it. But also, you like you said, it shouldn't overwhelm people to the point where they just don't know what to do next, right, in terms of taking action. And also, I have to say, it's like you're keeping your sister's memory alive, right, with the legacy that you're building and the impetus
Mhm.
you've used to sort of. So I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
So the other thing you mentioned to me, you're sort of shifting more into motivational speaking, right, from coaching. So could you talk a little bit about what drove that pivot and how you're sort of positioning yourself now as a speaker?
I'm focused on motivational speaking because I want to share my story.
Okay.
So it's essentially what I've talked about already, right? And I want to get that message out there that no matter what happens in your life, that is something that you can overcome, because oftentimes I'll talk about overcoming adversity to live your dreams.
Yeah.
So understanding it will take that mindset shift sometimes, but understand that you can overcome it no matter what happens in your life. And you want to have that opportunity to do that so you can start living your dreams. I read an article not too long ago which surprised me. And it said that the majority of the people do not live their dreams for fear of being judged. And
Wow.
so that, yes, I was surprised by that. I guess because of my perspective. I think that you don't let anyone or anything, not even yourself, stop you from living your dreams. So that's the message that I want to put out there. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. It's like, understand that we all go through tragedy. We all have challenges in our life. There's not one person who doesn't have a challenge. So there's always something in your life that may be difficult, but understand that you can change your mindset and get through that and start thinking about living the dreams. What is it that you desire to do?
Yeah.
What is it that you want to do before you leave, right? Are you going to regret a dream not lived? So that's the message that I want to put out there. That's why I'm so passionate about motivational speaking, is to give that message and put that message out there, to let people know that you can do anything. Like as a child, you mentioned that I grew up painfully shy.
Yeah.
And never in a million years would I have expected that I would do some of the things that I've done because of my shyness. I kept to myself.
Right.
So I didn't think that I would be able to do it.
Yeah.
But my mindset changed, and I said, I'm not going to let anything stop me from living my dreams.
Yeah.
And so that's the message that I want to put out there in the world. Don't let anything stop you, not even yourself, from
Yeah.
living your dreams. You can overcome anything. Yeah,
Yeah. And I guess speaking sort of gives you a larger stage or a lot bigger platform, right, to spread that message versus sort of
absolutely.
one-on-one coaching. That makes a lot of
Absolutely.
sense. And it also ties into, I think you mentioned to me that you're working on a book that
Yeah.
is called Take the Leap Before You're Ready. So is
Right.
that what inspired the title of the, because I love the title of the book. Could you talk a little bit about that in terms of, and
Yeah.
who are you hoping to reach? Tell me a little bit about that too.
Well, what inspired me, and I'm not sure if I talked about this because I only gave you part of the book,
Yeah.
but what inspired me is that I took the leap without thinking
Right.
because it was a dream of mine. So the dream that I'm talking about is I wanted to be on a game show. I love game shows. So I said, I'm going to go to Let's Make a Deal. I flew out to California to be in the audience. And of course, I didn't know if I was going to be selected. But
Right.
guess what? My mindset was, I am. I believed. And I was sitting there waiting for Wayne Brady to call my name. And it was getting towards the end. And I'm saying, why hasn't it called me
Yeah.
yet? with hundreds of people in the audience, however many it was. I'm sitting there thinking, because I believed so passionately.
Yeah.
And I said, why hasn't he called my name? So it came out from one of the commercial breaks. I think that was the second to the last from the call. And he goes, Deitra, did I pronounce it correctly? And I didn't even answer the question because I was shocked. I just ran to the stage and it's like completely a fog, right? Even though I believed and that I knew that he was going to call my name because I believed so passionately. So anyway, I decided to write a book because of that. Like, take the leap, step out
Right.
of your comfort zone, because I actually had to transform myself because I'm the last person who ever should have been selected for a game show. And I'm not kidding because of who I am.
Right.
I'm not a social person, but I had to transform myself so that I could have the potential of being selected. So I decided to write a book on taking the leap even before you're ready. And so what I mean by that is that take the leap before you change your mind. Get out of your head. Don't let your head say, oh, you can't do this. There's no way you're going to be selected. So take that leap. If it's your dream, go for it. If you want to start a business, go for it. I mean, of course, you have to put a plan in place,
Right. Yeah.
but don't let your head change your mind if it's something that you want to do. And I truly wanted to be on a game show.
Yeah.
And I took the leap.
and, and 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 it sounds like you have some telepathy going on there too. But I love that. And also you're right though, because it's like, I love that you said that, take the leap, because it's not about saying, okay, yeah, I want to do X, and then you lie on the couch waiting for it to happen, right? You didn't sit at home waiting for Wayne Brady and The Price is Right to call you. You actually did the work. You sort of put in, you went out there and put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And you have to do that, like you said, make the plan and start taking action. I think is really important, right? Don't sit and wait for divine intervention to sort of make it happen for you.
No, absolutely. And I tell people that all the time. I said that I had to go out there to California
Yeah.
in order to be considered. I said, Wayne Brady's not going to come to my house. Let's make a deal's not going to come to my house and say, you're
Knock on the
selected.
door. Yeah.
I had to put myself out there. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. And you have to have a lot of energy to be on that game show, right? I mean, like, typically you see the people who are on it seem like massive extroverts. So I love that you did that.
Yeah. And that's where the transformation came in.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited to read the book, Deitra. Uh,
Thank you.
so, what's the most surprising thing you've learned about yourself on this journey of being your own boss?
One of the things that I've learned, and I don't necessarily know if it's surprising, but one of the things that I learned is that I can do anything. I actually can do anything. I did my own website myself and I didn't use AI. I did it myself because I wanted it to look a certain way.
Yeah,
So that by doing that, it said that there's nothing that you're not capable of doing. I think I probably believed it for the most part because my parents would always say you can do anything in this world as long as you put in the work. But just by actually doing it and seeing what you've done, actually seeing the final product,
yeah,
because I looked at my website and I was like, wow, I did this.
that's amazing. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like it's a superpower, right? That you sort of unlocked, and also, like you said, I think everyone has it, right? It's
Yeah.
just a question of unlocking it and taking that leap. Because
Yeah.
until you take the leap, you're not going to unlock those things, right?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
there will always be bumps, right? And that's not a bad thing. I always say it's better to sort of lie on your deathbed regretting some of the things you've done than regretting the things you never did, right?
Yeah. I absolutely love that because
Yeah.
one of the things that I say all the time is that as a human, we're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sometimes it seems that we live in the world in which you're not necessarily forgiven for your mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes,
Yeah.
but guess what? I don't consider them mistakes because they've been learning opportunities. As long as you learn from those mistakes,
Yes.
I don't think they're mistakes.
Yeah.
It's only when you don't learn from the mistakes that you've made. I've always said I'm a human being. And yes, I will make mistakes sometimes.
Right.
I'm not perfect. I don't consider myself perfect. I consider myself a flawed human being, continuously working on myself to become the best person that I can be. So, mistakes are a part of living.
Yeah.
Just, just take
Go
the
ahead.
learning lesson. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and learning, right? Like you said, I agree with you. In fact, it's exactly the same thought in my head. Is like, there is there are no bad mistakes unless you walk away without learning any lessons.
Hmm.
That's the only thing. That's the only mistake there is. So I
Yeah.
completely agree with you, and I think that's a vital lesson for solopreneurs to learn, right? Because you will make a lot of them. And
Yes.
if you're not making them, you're not doing something right because
Mhm.
you're not learning then, right? And you're not improving, you're not getting better. So, yeah, I completely agree with you. I love that.
Yeah.
Now, you also said, so you mentioned a little while ago that you were staying up late nights when you first started working. You had no boundaries when you started your business. And I think you mentioned to me like you were up till like 4 a.m. and then trying to get up and work again the full day. So, let me ask you first, what were you doing on those late nights? Like, what kind of work? And then also, how have you adjusted your approach to take care of yourself and maintain your health now?
Yeah, so some of the things that I was working on is putting together the social media content. In the beginning, of course, it was the website. There was a learning curve when I created my website, so I had to learn that tool. So the website, and then sending out newsletters. So I had to do the research on what is the best CRM to use. Everything that's involved in being a solopreneur.
Yeah,
So one of the things that I learned was that I needed to stop and say, what is most important for me to get done today
right,
and not everything? What is it that I can put off? Because I can no longer, stay up till 4 a.m. and think that I can sleep for only 2 hours and get back up and start working again. That's not going to work for me. Um, so I had to figure out, put together a schedule and identify what it is that you need to get done in this day. Three things that's most important for you and the time in which you're going to do it so you can get to bed at a reasonable time.
right. And recharge, right? Because
Yeah,
again, it's
absolutely.
like we don't have employees, we don't have anyone else. If we run our battery down, then our entire business is going to feel the impact of that, right? So yeah, no,
Absolutely.
and like you said, there's always going to be more to learn. So you kind of have to figure out and the prioritization I think is key. But again, I think you learned that because I was the same way. Now I've become sort of manic about prioritizing my days, right? And
Yeah.
like you said, just understanding what are the most important things that will move my business forward, right? Not busy work. That's the other thing people get caught
Yeah.
up in sometimes is busy work, right? So yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's really important. So now, as a professor, you mentioned to me that a lot of young people sort of think solopreneurship is going to be very easy, right? Starting your own business is going to be like, oh, it's that thing of if you build it, they will come. So, what's the most important reality check you've given students about those unrealistic expectations that social media has fueled?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that for me, when I was teaching my business classes, is to have the students um, do real based projects in which they'll learn from those who are actually doing the business, what it entails, and what the challenges are. So learn from those who are actually doing the business, who are actually solopreneurs. So I would have them do that research and go out there and talk to others and talk about what are your challenge and ask questions like, what are your challenges? What are your successes? What is it like? to be the CEO of this company. So go out there and talk to those who are actually doing it to get a more realistic picture of what it takes, because every business is going to have challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, and the journey is going to have ups and downs, right?
Hmm.
And I'm glad you told them don't look at TikTok, right? Because that's not going to give you the reality of what running a business entails. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
talking to people I think is really important, and getting out of the classroom, right? I mean, that was really
Hmm.
great that you did that. Yeah, because even textbooks can't teach you that stuff. I don't think so, or
Yeah.
at least you don't digest it the same way when you read it on a page versus talking to somebody who is living
Who's
through.
actually,
Yeah,
yeah. So I should have said real world projects. I don't know what I
right.
said. I think I said real base projects, but real world projects is what I had my students doing, and going out there and talking to the people who are actually doing it, and understanding a more realistic picture. Like asking questions. What are your challenges? What have you been faced with? What is it like to be, an entrepreneur?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that sinks in a different ways. I love that. Um, did it sink in? Yeah, you know.
No, I absolutely believe that it did
Yeah,
sink in. Yeah, because they were talking to people who were actually doing it, right,
yeah,
and learning from them, and that's the whole reason for those real world projects, is to talk to people who are actually doing it and getting that perspective from them, and not looking at social media and what's going on social media, because it may not always be presented in a realistic way.
yes.
So yeah, so I would never recommend that. I would recommend going in and talking to the people who are faced with challenges, who have employees, and what it's like to be a leader.
Yes. And now you can point them to this podcast too if you come
Yeah.
across any more.
Yeah.
Shameless plug. Yeah. So let me ask you now you help others live their big bold dreams, right? So what does that look like for you though in the next couple of years?
Well, my biggest dream at the moment is getting my book completed.
Right.
That's something I'm very passionate about, and I'm hoping that it's going to empower and inspire others to take that leap and not worry about what other people may think if it's something you're passionate about. One of the things I would always tell my students is find what you're most passionate about, and then find a way in which to pursue it as a career. So I want others to know that whatever your dreams are, it's like dream big. And no, as long as they're realistic dreams, dream big. And then find a way in which you can achieve that dream, right? Because it's not going to just come to you just because you have a dream.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my dream at the moment, is to complete my book, because I want to inspire and uplift and motivate the world and let people know that they can live their biggest bold dreams.
Yeah, no, I love that. And as I said, I'll be the first to buy a copy of the book because
Okay,
I
good.
love the title and I love the mission.
Thank
So
you.
if you could offer one piece of advice to somebody wanting to start their solopreneur journey, what would you tell them? I know we've covered a lot, some of the stuff here, but what's the one thing you would tell them?
I think the one thing is something I've already said: research, research, research. Do your research. Do your research and find clarity in what your vision is going to be for
Yeah,
that business you're going to start. And then make sure you have a business plan. Even if you're not planning to get funding at the moment, your business plan is your roadmap on how you're going to be successful with that business. So put a business plan in place. And then if you decide to, go for funding, you know that you're going to have that business plan. No one's going to give you money without
yeah.
a business plan, because you're going to let people know this is how I'm going to be successful in my business. And I think that that is so important, to have a plan.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I agree with you. I mean, a lot of people now think it's old fashioned to have a business plan, but I, you know, funding, yes. And also I think it clarifies your own thinking, right? As you write it out.
Hmm.
So, and to your point, that's why it becomes your roadmap. And then, it also lets an investor know that you have a plan and you're not just hoping to make a few TikTok videos. Sorry, I keep coming back to that.
Yeah.
Uh,
One of the things that I used to tell my class, my business students, I would always say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So I
Yeah.
don't know why someone would think that having a business plan is old fashioned, because that's your roadmap to how you're going to be successful. It helps you to think through what
Yeah.
it is that you need to have as a business, every aspect of your business.
Yeah. And also look at the competitive view. Like you said, research, 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 right? So you will walk away much smarter than where you
Yes,
started. Yeah. So I agree.
yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners that we haven't covered?
Yes, I would love to share with your listeners that having a business is not easy. That's why I appreciate your podcast, because you're letting those who wish to become an entrepreneur know that this is not an easy journey, that you're going to have challenges. But what I absolutely love is that it is a fabulous journey for me, because it's an opportunity to learn so much, to understand the different tools that are out there, to have an opportunity to meet new people, because I do a lot of networking and I've come across so many great people. So it affords you the opportunity to just have a fabulous journey, but you need to be realistic in that although it's a fabulous journey, it's a journey in which you're going to have to put in the work. You're going to have to be resilient. You're going to have to be persistent, but it's a wonderful journey.
Yeah, no, I love that. And thank you for that fabulous plug for the podcast. So
You're welcome.
that brings us to our rapid fire round. So I'm just going to throw a few questions at you and you let me know what comes to mind. So if you had to distill your business philosophy into a post-it note, what would it say?
My philosophy, I think the message would be, I'm just going to go back to what I initially said, is that inspiring with authenticity. That's what I would put on the note.
That's great. Complete this sentence. The biggest myth about being an introvert in business is blank.
The biggest myth is that I think a lot of people, when they think about introverts, is that they're people who are shy. But when we're talking about introversion and extroversion, we're talking about where we get our energy from. So, as someone who is an introvert, I get my energy from myself. I enjoy being around just myself, not a lot of people. So, I think that's what the myth would be.
I love that. I'm going to steal that because it's like, as an introvert, I'm like, yeah, I don't need your energy. I got my own. I love that. What's the smallest change that you've made that's had the biggest impact on your business?
The smallest change that
Yeah.
I've made, I don't think that I've really made a change when it comes to my business. I think for me, my business is just continuing to grow as I continue to move forward with it, and just understanding the messages that people relate to, or the messages that I want to put out there on positivity to help make a change in the world. So I think, in terms of a small change, I don't necessarily know that there's been a small change. It's just continuing to grow and figuring things out, in terms of what I need to do as a business, to continue putting out my message on kindness, caring, compassion, and positivity and gratitude.
Right. And not staying up till 4 a.m.
Oh,
anymore. Yeah.
oh, okay, okay. Well, that is a change.
It's a big change. I wasn't going for that one. Um,
Yeah.
what's one question you wish people would ask you more often?
I think one question I think people should ask me more often is probably about gratitude, and why I am so passionate about gratitude, and why I believe in the power of gratitude.
Yeah, I hope they do. If your journey from professor to solopreneur was a game show, what would it be called?
My journey from being a professor to a solopreneur, is that what you said?
Yeah, was a game
Um,
show.
Yeah. What would it be called? I would say the fabulous life of empowering students to now empowering the world.
I would watch that show, and I hope Netflix picks it up. Uh, well, that's a lovely way. It's a fabulous way, I should say, to end the show, Deitra. Thank you so much. It's been so much fun talking to you. And thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and for plugging the Unfiltered Solopreneur.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity.
Deitra's story hit me differently than most conversations I've had on this show. There's something about losing someone close that strips away all the noise and forces you to confront what really matters. Her sister's passing wasn't just a personal tragedy. It became a turning point that shaped a mission to help others avoid the regret of unfulfilled dreams. Here are my key takeaways from our conversation. Transformation isn't about changing who you are, it's about becoming who you need to be. Deitra remained an introvert throughout her journey, but she learned to transform herself in specific situations to achieve her goals. She didn't try to become an extrovert. She became someone who could step outside her comfort zone when it mattered. This is crucial for solopreneurs who think they need to fundamentally change their personality to succeed. You don't need to be someone else. You just need to be the best version of yourself when the situation demands it. Health isn't negotiable, even when you're building something new from scratch. Deitra learned the hard way that working until 4 a.m. wasn't sustainable. She had to shift from trying to do everything to identifying the three most important things each day. Many solopreneurs wear exhaustion as a badge of honor. But if you're the entire business, burning out isn't just personal, it's operational suicide. Your health is your business's foundation. Research beats inspiration every time. While everyone else is chasing the latest social media strategy, Deitra emphasizes old school fundamentals. Research your market, write a business plan, talk to people who actually do what you want to do. In a world filled with overnight success stories, this feels almost radical. But sustainable businesses aren't built on viral moments. They're built on understanding your market, your customers, and your competitive landscape. Authenticity is your competitive moat in a world filled with false promises. Deitra refuses to compromise on her values of kindness, compassion, and integrity, even when the algorithm rewards negativity and controversy. This is the hardest lesson for solopreneurs today. The market rewards sensationalism and hype, but sustainable success comes from consistency of character. Your values aren't just nice to haves. They're what will differentiate you when everyone else is chasing the same tactics. Take the leap before you change your mind. Deitra's book title captures something profound. We often know what we need to do, but we overthink ourselves out of action. She flew to California for Let's Make a Deal not because she was confident, but because she believed before she could talk herself out of it. The window between inspiration and hesitation is where dreams die. Most solopreneurs don't fail because of bad ideas. They fail because they never get started. Perfect timing is a myth. Ready is a feeling you create through action, not meticulous planning. Deitra's journey reminds us that the most powerful businesses aren't built from ambition alone. They're built on the urgent truth that time is finite, dreams are fragile, and the only thing guaranteed is this moment. Thanks for listening to Unfiltered Solopreneur. If you got value from today's episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another solopreneur who needs this message. Until next time, keep breaking free from the corporate grind, and remember, your story is your most powerful asset. Live solo or die corporate.